Our preparation stays the same. We come in and we compete every day, and we're going to be ready to go. I mean, it doesn't matter who the opponent is or who we're facing. We don't change anything, based upon where we're going or who we're playing. We stay consistent with our approach.
Calendar says March, which means that the madness has already begun. Find out what the men's basketball team needs to do to keep its season alive. Access granted. OwlAccess Pass starts right now. Hello everybody and welcome to another edition of OwlAccess Pass. My name is Dan Wilson. Sean McGeehan will be with us in just a little bit. We've got a great one on hand for you today, including a recap of Temple's trip to the AAC Women's Basketball Tournament, recaps from both an exciting week of fencing and lacrosse, as well as a look at the AAC Men's Basketball Tournament bracket. But we begin today with the men's basketball team's season finale in Cincinnati. The Owls took on the Bearcats for the second time this season, and this one was decided in the closing seconds. Quentin Rose drops 19 points and grabbed 5 boards in the final regular season game of his collegiate career. Devondre Perry and Alani Moore added 10 and 9 points respectively. Bearcats guard Jaron Cumberland had a game-high 20 points to go along with his 7 boards and 7 assists. The Owls had a double-digit lead at one point, but the game ended with a Cincinnati comeback and a wild sequence that included a J.P. Mormon 3 to give the Owls a 1-point lead with 16 seconds to go. However, Cincinnati's Trey Scott had a tip-in with 2 seconds remaining and sent the Owls home following an unsuccessful road trip. The final score from this one, Cincinnati 64, Temple 63. Earlier in the week, Owls took on Tulsa, and for the 5 seniors, it was the final game inside the Lacrosse Center. Owls went toe-to-toe with Tulsa for the first 18 minutes. Then the Owls went scoreless for 7 consecutive minutes in the midst of a 10-0 run for Tulsa. The Owls shot below 30% in the game, 23% from three-point land. Damian Moore had 9 points and 10 rebounds. Alani Moore, 3 points and just 1 of 7 shooting. And Quentin Steele-Rose scores 15 points and grabs 7 boards in his final act in North Broad, but he does end as the all-time leader in points and steals in AAC history. Owls lose this one at home, 61-51. So, of course, that brings us to this week, and I welcome my co-host, Sean McGeehan, as we preview the AAC Men's Basketball Tournament. Sean, as you take a look, Temple's first matchup will be going up against SMU. They are the 10 seed. Sean, that's the lowest seed Temple has ever had in the AAC tournament. What are you expecting from Fort Worth?
Rightfully so. It should be the lowest. They had an off season, off and on season. I'm not expecting much when they go down to Fort Worth. They did beat SMU earlier in the season. That was led by an incredible comeback at the Lacrosse Center. I don't see them escaping that first round matchup versus SMU, to be honest. I think it's an early flight back home to Philly. At best, they get a second round exit versus Houston, but that's a tough draw. So I don't know. I'm predicting a early exit.
Yeah, absolutely a tough draw. I agree with you. I think this team looks like a first round exit. They just have not been playing good basketball lately. They've lost 5 consecutive games. They haven't won a game in 3 weeks. Now they have the task of winning 4 games in 4 days. Their second round matchup would be up against Houston, a team that we're both picking to win this entire conference tournament. So definitely a lot in front of them. But yeah, getting through SMU is going to be difficult.
Yeah, Houston, in my eyes, the best team in the tournament. I have them winning, like you said. Yeah. And Temple just did end the regular season on 5 straight consecutive losses. Yeah. All conference games. I don't see this going well for Temple.
If there's any optimism, Temple did beat SMU at home this year in overtime. It was a great comeback, and they played Houston, only lost to them by 4. So it's not impossible, but it's a tall task, to say the least. Thanks for joining me, Sean. Sean will be back with us in just a little bit, but first, let's go to the present day, where we caught up with the team at practice before it heads to Texas.
Our focus is SMU, because at this point, if we don't get past SMU, then the season is over.
The team that comes out, throws the first punch, is usually a team that wins. So, we just got to come out with great energy, throw the first punch, and sustain it the whole game. I think the coaches have done a good job, just stressing the importance of this and keeping everybody together, keeping guys believing that we can make a run and we can win 4 games in 4 days.
Yeah, we got to go out there and play our hearts out. It could be our last game, so we got to leave everything on the floor every game. Get on a one-game winning streak every single game. So we got to go out there and try to throw the first punch, like Q said, and just go out there and enjoy the game.
And a reminder that OwlSports Update is your go-to destination for all things Owls basketball during their run in the AAC tournament. I will actually be down there myself, so be sure to follow us on social media at OwlSports Update for the latest in news, stats, and interviews. To the women's team, Owls taking on national powerhouse UConn in the quarterfinals of the AAC tournament. Huskies get a bucket the closing seconds of the first quarter to go up by 2, and it was all downhill from there. In the second, UConn does that UConn thing, outscoring the Owls 32-15 in the second quarter, and they never look back. Mia Davis had 21 points on 8 of 14 shooting, while Ashley Jones contributed with 13 points and 5 boards of her own, but the Huskies were simply too much to handle. Gino Ariema and company win this one by a final score of 94-61. A surprise to no one, the Huskies coasted in the AAC tournament more than a high school senior does during second semester. The Owls lost to UConn by 33 points, and that was the closest matchup UConn played in the entire tournament, torching USF by 41 and taking down Cincinnati in the championship game by 34 points. All but one game in this tournament was won by the higher seed. UConn has won all 7 AAC tournaments as the top-seeded team in the conference. Sean is back to wrap up the women's season. Sean, what did you see here?
I mean, Dan, we saw no surprises in this one. Look, you look in the quarterfinals, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the top seeds were in it. And of course, UConn coming out on top. That, like you said, is a surprise to nobody. And in the 7 years that the AAC has been a conference for women, UConn's taken every single title, and they've had a 34.6 margin difference in those conference games. So this should come as a surprise to nobody.
Yeah, absolutely, just dominance. UConn running through this tournament every year. They've always been the #1 seed, and they've always won this tournament, have yet to lose a game since the conference's inception.
And of course, this is their last time in this conference.
Sure.
They're headed to the Big East. I think next year Cincinnati will take that throne. They've been in the championship game 2 years in a row. Gino Ariema's squad took them out for the past 2 years. I think next year is the year for Cincinnati to take the throne in the AAC.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Total game changer. Well, speaking of total dominance, Temple's fencing team entered the 2020 NIWFA Championships as a 24-time, yes, you heard that correctly, the 24-time defending champs. The last time the Owls didn't win this event, Google hadn't been invented yet. The annual fencing meet took place over spring break in Madison, New Jersey. And the historical streak continues, and the Owls did it in style. Not only did the Owls finish first in a 12-team meet, they swept individual awards for the first time since 2014. They swept weapons for the first time since 2015. And the Owls continued their streak of earning at least 2 awards in every year of the NIWFA Championships. Well, this past weekend, the Owls took their talents to the regionals in Durham, North Carolina, and to no one's surprise, their impact was felt. 9 of the 12 rostered Owls qualified for regionals. 3 of those 9 were freshmen, and senior Malia He took home silver medal in sabre. The Temple gymnastics team held its senior night over the weekend, and for seniors Jasmine Estrella, Daisy Todd, and Jaylene Everett, they went out on top with a win over Ursinus 195.575 to 185.775. The Owls' overall score was the 3rd best score in program history and their highest of this season. Temple's final score totals included a 48.275 on vault, 49.025 on bars, 48.725 on the beam, and a season-high 49.1 on the floor. The Owls have 1 more regular season meet left, a dual meet at William & Mary. To Howarth Field, where Temple took on UMBC in some lacrosse action on Saturday afternoon. With a minute remaining before the half, the Owls trailed by 2 goals. However, 2 quick strikes just before the horn tied this game at 5. From that point, the Owls never trailed again. Bridget Whitaker and Olivia Thompson each had hat tricks for the Owls, while Belle Mastro-Pietro continues her impressive season with 2 goals herself. Owls take down UMBC 10-7 for their 4th straight win. Now time for our hashtag OwlAccess Extra. Let's start with the lacrosse team. The 3 Owls were awarded an AAC Weekly Award. The local Springfield native Belle Mastro-Pietro was named Conference Freshman of the Week. Senior defender Kara Necratius was named Defensive Player of the Week. And for a 3rd time this season, junior midfielder Bridget Whitaker was named the Weekly Honor Roll. The fencing team will be heading to nationals, but who specifically remains a question mark. The national tournament will take place on March 19th and 20th in Detroit, Michigan. We have to wait until Tuesday to see who will be competing on the national stage. And it's been a while since we've talked about football, but spring football practices start this week. This means individual positional workouts, Pro Day, and of course, the Cherry and White Fan Fest. Certainly a lot of interesting storylines to follow as Rod Carey enters his second year as head coach. That'll do it for this edition of OwlAccess Pass. Be sure to follow us on all things social media at OwlSports Update for the latest in Temple athletics, and to watch anchors Addison Hunsaker and Brian Steinmetz bring you the latest in Temple basketball every Wednesday in Courts in Session. For Sean McGeehan and our entire crew, I'm Dan Wilson. Have a great week, everybody.